We're reflecting on Josh Allen's 2025 campaign and identifying what the Bills need to do in the quarterback room this offseason today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Well, folks, welcome in. If you are looking for my reaction and analysis to the coordinator hires of Jim Leonhard, Pete Carmichael, and Jeff Rodgers, that happened on Saturday. I released 2 episodes of Locked On Bills reacting to that news. So if you want that analysis, scroll back 1 or 2 in your feed and find those. Today, on this episode, we are focusing in on Josh Allen. And we are beginning our, I guess it's a performance review series where we're going to go position by position and reflect on what happened in that group in the past season, and then kind of projecting things forward and identifying what needs to happen this offseason. So today is quarterbacks, and of course, that's a conversation that's pretty much centered around Josh Allen. So let's do that right now. So Josh Allen came to the Bills through the 2018 NFL Draft, was a first-round pick, number 7 overall. He's 29 years old. He's going to turn 30 in May. He's entering year 2 of his 6-year, $330 million contract. And the Bills have some flexibility with this contract in the form of a simple restructure. They could restructure this contract this offseason and create $12.2 million in cap space. And if they do that, boom, the Bills are cap compliant. And then everything else they would do would be creating additional cap space to make the moves necessary this offseason. And so let's talk about his 2025 statistical production. And I want to do this exactly how I do quarterbacks that the Bills are facing. So if you are an everydayer and you listen to the primer episodes where we get ready for an upcoming opponent, I talk about the quarterback through these metrics. And so I'll do that right now for Josh Allen. So in 2025, Josh Allen completed 69.3% of his passes. That's actually a career high. It is, in fact, 5.7% higher than it was last year in 2024 during his MVP season. He passed for 3,668 yards, 25 passing touchdowns, and that is actually the lowest passing yards and lowest passing touchdowns that Josh has had in a season since 2019. Had 10 interceptions and a passer rating of 102.2. Josh Allen ran the ball quite a bit, 112 rushes for 579 yards. In fact, those 579 yards are the most he's had over the last 3 seasons. And he rushed for 14 touchdowns, and that's his 3rd consecutive season of double-digit rushing touchdowns. His EPA per dropback in 2025 was plus 0.1, which was 9th in the NFL. To give you a comparison, last year as an MVP, his EPA per dropback was plus 0.25. So a considerable drop in EPA per dropback for Josh Allen this year. If he was 0.25 again this year, that would have been number 1 in the NFL. He threw deep, and when I say throws deep, I mean the target is 20 yards or more from the line of scrimmage, 11.1% of the time. That's 17th in the NFL. And Josh Allen actually had a much better season this year than last year on deep throws. He completed 43% of his deep throws, which is 10th best in the NFL. Now, his yards per attempt was 12.55 on deep throws, which was 15th. His passer rating on deep throws was 105.5, which was 12th, and his catchable ball rate on deep throws was 58.8, which is actually 10th in the NFL. And those numbers are way, way better than they were last year. Yards after catch accounted for 55.3% of Josh Allen's passing yards, which was the 5th highest mark in the NFL. So this has become a passing offense that has a lot of yards after catch that has continued now for a couple seasons under Joe Brady. Josh Allen threw to his first read 63% of the time, which is 24th in the NFL and a 6% increase from last year. So Josh Allen went to that first read a lot more frequently this year. His catchable ball rate, this is an exciting part of his 2025 season. His catchable ball rate was 79.1%, 4th highest in the NFL, and a 7% increase from last year. He had notable growth in that area, which we'll talk about more in the next segment. His turnover-worthy throw rate was up, as you may have guessed, 3%, 22nd in the NFL, so 10th highest among the top 32 in the NFL in dropbacks. Actually, a 1% increase in turnover-worthy throw rate from last year. And when you're talking about a 1% increase in turnover-worthy throw rate, that's a pretty big jump. I mean, you're talking about a typical range for quarterbacks that, like, the best in the league are around 1%. The worst in the league are around 4-5%. So you talk about a 1% jump. It's pretty significant. The drop rate was 5% this year. That's 19th in the NFL. The pressure rate, so he faced pressure on 38% of dropbacks. That was 16th in the NFL and a 6% increase. Now, one of the big metrics, one of the, alarms are going off when you look at this. Josh Allen's pressure to sack rate this past year skyrocketed. 19.1% of the pressure that Josh Allen faced resulted in a sack. 23rd in the NFL. Last year, it was 8.2%, which was the best in the NFL. So that's one of the biggest regression areas this year. And we'll talk about it more in the next segment, but I'm laying the foundation for the analysis that's coming here in segment 2. Play action was a huge part of the equation. 31% play action rate this year. That was 5th highest in the NFL. That is something that makes me really happy. And it's something that really towards the end of the year really ramped up. And so I'm hopeful that moving forward, that play action rate can be high all the way through the season. And then, of course, screens were a notable part of the equation. 12.6% of the dropbacks were screens. That's the 5th highest rate in the NFL. Now, I will say Josh Allen's passing metrics with screens were outstanding. A passer rating, I think, of over 107, one of the highest yards per attempt in the league on screens. So I know they were frustrating to a lot of people, and that's because screens, they either work or they don't, right? You either throw the screen pass and it turns into the play you want it to be, or it's incomplete or it gets blown up, right? There's not a whole lot of middle ground. It's not like if you call a screen, Josh Allen can look and not throw it and then do something else. You can't, right? You're locked into that. It's a one. There's not even a read. It's just you throw it, and it either works or it doesn't. And so I think we become very frustrated with the ones that don't work. But relative to the NFL, like the Bills' screen game was easily one of the 5 or 10 best in the NFL, probably top 5. But screens either work or they don't. And when Josh one hops them or Shakir gets blown up, you hate it. But you are quick to forget about the ones that turn into really nice plays. So they're also something that Josh checks into quite a bit. A lot of times they go up to the line, and based on the look, they will check into screens. And that's one of the answers that the Bills have had for some of the pressure looks. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But screens definitely a big part of the equation here. 12.6%, 5th highest rate in the NFL. All right, so I gave you a bunch of numbers. I'll tell you more about what they mean here next as we reflect on Josh Allen's 2025 campaign and what needs to happen in 2026. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to stay locked into every moment than with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. With football season coming down to its final stretch, now is the perfect time to close it out strong. Prize Picks makes watching the game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around player projections, no drafts, no waiting, just football action all the way through the playoffs. Prize Picks is incredibly easy to get started. All you do is pick 2 or more players and choose more or less on their projections, and it's going to make watching games way more engaging. It's a great way to keep playing fantasy football even after season-long leagues are finished. You're going to love the early payouts, which lets you cash out if a player gets hot to start. And it's really fun to be able to mix stars from different teams and build lineups that fit how you want to watch the game. So check it out. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, focus, and mood all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where Drip Drop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Think clearer focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. I've been using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine, and it is a game changer, not just for workouts, but for every day. And it tastes amazing. I love so many flavors: lemon, lime, watermelon, peach. They're all really good. And they have 16 original flavors and 8 zero sugar options to choose from. I've been enjoying the zero sugar options. It's plenty sweet. They taste great. And in a lot of these like hydration packets, they're like salty and kind of bitter. Not at all the case. I mean, this is delicious. You got to check it out. You will feel better. Drip Drop's science-backed formula is trusted by firefighters, medical professionals, and over 90% of top college and pro teams because it rehydrates you faster and more effectively than water alone. So check it out right now. Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, welcome back. Let's talk more about Josh Allen's 2025 campaign. And I think Josh Allen had a fine season. Wasn't his best year, wasn't his worst year. Still an MVP finalist. One of the 5 players in the NFL that were identified as MVP finalists. Don't expect him to win it. It'll be Stafford or May. But he's a top 5 MVP finalist. The overarching thing that I consider when thinking about Josh Allen's 2025 campaign were the receiver limitations. And whether you want to poke holes in the collection of talent or simply be mindful of the lack of availability, it was a challenge. You know, Dalton Kincaid emerges as this star tight end. Like, for being honest, he was unbelievable. Just wasn't healthy. Josh Palmer, big ticket free agent. Banged up in camp, never really settles into a role. You're not getting what you counted on there. Curtis Samuel, banged up. Keon Coleman started hot, but faded quickly. And then he has obviously some issues being on time, gaining trust. He's inactive several times. Elijah Moore never really came together. Late in the season, you're bringing up Gabe Davis. Tyrell Shavers has got a role, then those guys get hurt. And so when you think about like the perceived top target players for this offense and what it was supposed to be going into the year, I would guess that it was supposed to be Shakir, Kincaid, Coleman, Palmer, and those top 4, 2 of them had availability issues, and then you get into Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore, and you just never really had the consistency that you needed at the receiver position. And I think that affected a lot of this passing game. My favorite part of Josh Allen's 2025 campaign was his accuracy. This was one of Josh Allen's most accurate seasons in a while. 4th highest catchable ball rate. And the data source that I use, Fantasy Points Data Suite, which is by far the best data suite that you can imagine for football analytics. They chart throws and they identify highly accurate throws. Like where the placement of the ball really maximizes the result of the play. 3rd highest in highly accurate throw rate. He made some great throws. His ball placement was as consistent as I've seen it. His deep throws, 10th highest in catchable ball rate. And you're probably listening to me talk about that right now, and you're thinking, well, the Denver game, he missed some big throws. That's exactly what I'm talking about when I began this conversation by referring to the lack of wide receiver stability. He's missing throws to Mecole Hardman. He's missing throws to Brandon Cooks, who's been on the team for just a few weeks. You were counting on Gabe Davis and Tyrell Shavers, and they tore their ACL the week before. That inconsistency was a problem. And so don't let that game cloud your judgment of the overall picture of Josh Allen's accuracy throughout the year, because it was one of his best seasons. Now, I mentioned the data suite, and they chart throws as catchable balls, highly accurate, and then there's a very, very, very special category called the hero throw. These are the special plays. Josh Allen's hero throw rate was alarmingly low. He was 23rd in the NFL in hero throw rate at 3.7%. What do you think it was last year? 7.5%. I mean, you're talking about cut in half, basically. In 2023, it was 4.8%. In 2022, it was 7.6%. In 2021, it was 6.5%. So a 5-year low, and half of what it was the last year. Those special Josh Allen moments just didn't happen as frequently as we're used to them seeing. I'll tell you why I think that is here in just a moment. I've kind of already told you. I think a lot of it has to do with what was around him or what wasn't around him. But I want to kind of spill this into a conversation about Josh Allen and how he performed under pressure, because this was a black eye. We talked about the huge dip in hero throws. You had a huge dip in Josh Allen's performance under pressure. He was under pressure, like I said already, 6% more times, or at a 6% higher frequency than last year. But the sack rate skyrocketed. He was sacked on 7.3% of dropbacks. Last year, that was 2.6, lowest in the NFL. So a huge jump there. He got sacked 40 times. That's more than he was sacked the previous 2 years combined. We talked about the pressure to sack conversion rate going from 8% to 19.1%. How about this one? Every sack, there's blame to be assessed. Could be the offensive line, but a lot of times it's the quarterback. And 12 of the 40 sacks that Josh Allen took were charged to him. That was 4 last year that were charged to him. 12. Huge balloon there, right? And then Josh Allen also had a career low 13 throwaways after he had 30 or more in each of the last 5 seasons. And so I just feel like so much of this came down to what was lacking around Josh Allen. I don't think he's declined in terms of his skill. But when your hero throw rate is down, when you're taking more sacks, you're throwing the ball away less, I just think it speaks to the Bills just missing the mark on the receiver position. And then, of course, what you did have was banged up. It was too hard at times. And think about playing defense against the Bills. What are you thinking most about? You're thinking about the dynamic playmaking skill of Josh Allen and James Cook, right? That's what you're concerned about. So there's going to be a lot of attention in the backfield, right? Your quarterback's playmaking ability and your running back, the two central parts of your offense. Eyes in the backfield, attention on the backfield from opposing defenses. The escape outlets that Josh Allen can typically find, they weren't there. You had way more mirror and spy players. You had way more defenders committed to containing Josh Allen, and it took away from his ability to be special because they're not concerned about what you have catching the football. They're willing to commit those resources to the pocket and to the backfield. You have to make them pay for that. And that starts with having better receiving talent around Josh Allen and for that receiving talent to be available. So that's what I'm left thinking a lot about when it comes to Josh Allen's 2025 campaign. Fine season, good accuracy, but overall a decline in the special moments. Why is that? Not only did you not, I think, have the right mix around him, and of course there's availability issues, but think about the stability that he once had with Diggs, Davis, Knox, Beasley, Brown. Like, these guys were all like very established players with Josh Allen. And so Josh Allen's had this really like flipped upside down supporting cast, and he's got to get chemistry going with so many different players, and then they're in and out of the lineup. It just takes away from your ability to be super consistent. Now, I loved how things came together with Dalton Kincaid, but, well, yeah, that guy wasn't really available. So the 2026 outlook for Josh Allen. 3 things. Number 1, maintain your status as an elite NFL quarterback and be in that MVP conversation. Hopefully you win it, but be in that conversation once again. Continue to evolve with Joe Brady and now Pete Carmichael. And then really just the Bills need to be better around him. They need to be better around him at receiver. They need to be more stable. Their protection schemes have to improve. For as much as I think the Bills' offensive line really succeeded with run blocking, and I love what Aaron Kromer has done, I feel like protection schemes just were kind of lacking. And it wasn't as much, and I've said this for a few years now, it's not as much players getting beat in pass pro. It's more the protection scheme broke down. And so those things, I think, are paramount to what needs to improve for 2026. All right. We got to talk about quarterback depth. Mitchell Trubisky. What's the outlook there? And then just kind of tie a ribbon on this conversation and be kind of specific about this offseason, what the Bills need to get done. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there's got to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone can see the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, and it works right from your phone or computer, and you can even keep your existing number. So check it out. Make this year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You can pull up the Game Time app right now. You'll pick an upcoming NBA game. You'll get tickets within minutes. You'll love being able to see the all-in price up front, so no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, being able to see the view from the seat before purchasing will make that decision easy. They've got great deals on last-minute tickets. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. All right, folks, let's talk about this quarterback depth, which is Mitchell Trubisky. Was a 2024 free agent signing. He's 31 years old. He's going to turn 32 in August. His contract has expired. He has completed his 2-year, $5.25 million deal. Last year, he completed 25 of 35 passes for 313 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And so he saw him play extensively in Week 18 against the Jets. He threw 4 passes against Carolina in that blowout win. And then, of course, had that 22-yard dot to Josh Palmer on that 3rd down in the first game against the Jets where Josh Allen had to come off the field. I think was that when he took that shot to the eye or his face. And Trubisky comes in and throws a strike on 3rd and long to Josh Palmer for 22 yards. So let's talk about his 2025 review. I mean, this is the most confidence I've ever had in Mitch Trubisky. He clearly beats out Mike White in training camp. Had a good preseason. Remember the Giants game? Now, the Bears game, everyone was terrible against the Bears, but that Giants preseason game, he was terrific. And, of course, he had good moments in the regular season, was really good in that Week 18 game, and made a huge throw in that win over the Jets. So what's the outlook here? Well, I hope he's back as a QB2. He makes a lot of sense. He's low cost, great relationship with Josh Allen. I think his skill set works well for this offense. There's a level of comfort there. I hope he's back as a QB2 on a similar type deal. Now, one thing I will point out that could make that tricky is you have a lot of quarterback need across the league, and you don't have a lot of answers. You really don't. Like, there's not a lot of options for these teams that need quarterbacks. And so what does Trubisky want? Right? Is Trubisky fine just being Josh Allen's backup for the rest of his career, or does he want to position himself to play? And so that's a question only he can answer, but that's the only part of this that I'm suspicious about. Like, if he wants to be Josh Allen's backup, I think you get this done. He's Josh Allen's backup. But if Trubisky looks at this and says, kind of did some good things this year, there's probably going to be some opportunities across the league. Let me go somewhere where I'll have a chance to play. Like, maybe that's what he wants. We'll see. And so I hope he's back, but I'm not naive to that possibility. Now, he is going to be 32 this year. He has had multiple chances to start, and he finds his way back to Buffalo. We'll see where it goes. The only other quarterback is Shane Buechele. He was the practice squad quarterback. He's got a great relationship with Josh and Mitch. I think they like the makeup of those three together and how it all works together to really optimize Josh Allen's performance. I think he's important for Josh in some ways. I've heard that he's very good in terms of protection schemes and pressure coming from the defense and kind of sorting those types of things out. And so, he's perfectly fine as a QB3. He's accustomed to the role, knows what it means to run the scout team and, be that other guy in the room for Josh Allen. So let's talk about this offseason. What do they have and what do they need? Well, what they have is Josh Allen locked up, right? 5 more years left on the contract, and you love that. But you need a lot of other things. You need a QB2. Hopefully that's Trubisky. You need a QB3. Hopefully that's Shane Buechele, but those are not players under contract. So the Bills will need to add 2 quarterbacks to this roster in some way, shape, or form. Again, could be Trubisky and Buechele. Other things the Bills need, they need to get better at receiver. They need to become more stable at that position so Josh Allen can be optimized. That's what I keep coming back to. The burden of having Josh Allen as your quarterback isn't that he can erase deficiencies on your roster. The burden should be that you should give him what he needs to be successful so that way his output, his impact can be maximized. That's the burden. And I think it's been a little bit too much the other way where it's, we have Josh. Josh is good for 30 points a game. Let's invest in the defense. I'm not saying ignore the defense. I'm not saying ignore the run game. But I am saying prioritize optimizing Josh Allen. And they also, when I talk about things that they need to do this offseason, is obviously Josh Allen has to get healthy. He's had a surgery. I don't think there's a whole lot of concern about him missing even offseason time. But he's got to get healthy, and they got to keep him healthy, right? He started a lot of games in a row, the longest active start streak in the NFL, and it's pretty unlikely that it's been as long as it has. He's played through some crazy stuff. Played through a broken foot this year, played through a broken hand last year. I would like for that to not be the case. Like this guy to be healthy feeling good. And then obviously the Bills have some big things to figure out with their offensive line, with a couple of starters on expiring contracts, some depth players on expiring contracts. I'm not afraid of transition, but you got to have the right plan. You got to have the right plan. Because Josh Allen's health is the most important thing about the Buffalo Bills. Nothing else matters. Josh Allen's not healthy, nothing else matters. So that's got to be at the forefront, and having the right plan to solidify that offensive line and bring it together and give 17 his best chance to be healthy. So there you have it. Quarterback review in the books. We'll do this for every position here in the coming weeks. And of course, we'll talk about, whatever news happens, the Bills have a coaching staff to continue filling out. I'm excited to see what assistants Joe Brady comes in for the different positions. And of course, whatever else happens. So we'll be breaking it down for you here every step of the way on Locked On Bills. Bills Squad will be live on YouTube at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. So come be part of that. Myself, Jeremy White, Jerry Ostrowski will have a roundtable discussion that'll be certainly focused in on the new coordinators. That our plan is Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time live on YouTube. Then it lives on YouTube, and then we'll post it as a regular audio podcast when we're done as well. So don't miss anything. Make sure you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.